They said, "I do." And in that moment, the world seemed to pause. Wang and Bai, two stars whose names had been whispered together for years, just became husband and wife. A fairy tale wedding. One that didn't just unite two hearts, but stunned the entire industry. Because nobody expected it to happen this way. It started like a dream. A private location. A guest list kept under the tightest wraps. And yet, the air around the event carried magic. Friends described it as something out of a drama. Others said, this wasn't just a wedding, it was a story being written in real time. And fans? Fans could hardly believe it. For years, Dylan and Bai had been surrounded by speculation. Were they just colleagues? Were they simply friends? Or was there something deeper? Something too precious to be displayed under the spotlight? Every glance, every laugh, every behind-the-scenes moment they shared only fueled the whispers. But now, all the questions had an answer. They had always been more than what the world saw. The wedding itself felt like poetry. Imagine this. An aisle lined with white roses, their petals soft under the golden glow of sunset. The venue was not a hotel ballroom, not a grand palace, but rather a place close to their hearts. A garden hidden away, shielded from flashing cameras, where nature itself became the backdrop. Birds sang in the distance. Strings played softly in the background. And as Bai stepped forward, wearing a gown that seemed crafted from moonlight itself, all eyes turned to her. She looked radiant, not just as a star, but as a woman in love. Dylan stood waiting, nervous, smiling, but with eyes that betrayed the depth of the moment. This was not the actor fans knew from the screen. This was not the celebrity carefully polished for the media. This was Dylan Wang, a man seeing the love of his life walk toward him. And in that instant, nothing else mattered. The vows were simple. No elaborate words. No rehearsed speeches. Just raw emotion. Dylan took her hands and said, "You are my safe place, my strength, and my forever." Bai, holding back tears, whispered, "I don't need a perfect life. I just need a life with you." There wasn't a dry eye among the guests. When the officiant declared, "You may now kiss the bride," the moment became timeless. Cheers erupted. Laughter and tears blended into one. And for a brief second, the world outside the garden no longer existed. It was just them. Two people. Two souls. Two destinies intertwined. But the wedding didn't just stun because of its beauty. It stunned because of who they invited and who they didn't. The guest list was small, intimate, only the people who had walked through their real lives, not their public ones. Close friends, trusted family, and a handful of colleagues who had become like siblings. The industry's biggest names weren't there. There was no red carpet, no press conference. And that's what made it magical. It wasn't about showing the world. It was about showing each other. Still word leaked. A photo here. A whispered detail there. Fans scrolled endlessly, zooming in on every frame, every stolen capture. One picture in particular went viral. Dylan, his hand gently wiping away a tear from Bailu's cheek, right after they exchanged vows. That single image carried more weight than 1,000 press releases. Because it wasn't staged. It wasn't posed. It was love in its purest form. And soon, hashtags trended worldwide. Hashtag Dylan and Bai. Hashtag they said you. Hashtag Fairytale wedding. Millions of fans from China to Korea, from Japan to Europe, from the US to Southeast Asia, all joined in a chorus of celebration. People weren't just congratulating celebrities. They were celebrating love. Because in their story, fans saw something universal. The hope that even in a world of chaos, true connection can still exist. But what made this wedding even more unforgettable was the symbolism. Did you notice the details? Bailu's gown wasn't just white. It carried delicate embroidery of phoenix feathers. A nod to strength. A nod to rebirth. Dylan's suit carried a subtle design on the inside lining. Fans who spotted it realized it was stitched with tiny stars. Because Bai had once said in an interview that she loved stargazing, and that to her, love meant finding someone who makes even the night feel safe. He remembered. He carried her stars with him, right down the aisle. The reception that followed was no less breathtaking. Instead of a grand hall, they dined under the open sky. Fairy lights strung between trees, lanterns floating into the night air, laughter echoing in waves. Instead of a towering wedding cake, they chose something humble, a dessert table filled with their favorite sweets. Because to them, it wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about being real. At one point, friends encouraged Dylan to make a toast. He stood up, glass in hand, looking first at Bai Lu, then at everyone present. And his words became another moment fans couldn't stop talking about. Just, all my life, I've been seen as a character. On screens, in headlines, in stories told about me. But today, for the first time, I feel like I'm seen simply as myself. And that's because of her. He raised his glass toward Bai Lu, and the crowd cheered until their voices filled the night. For Bai Lu, her speech was softer, more personal. She said, "People always ask me why I laugh so much, why I find joy in small things. It's because I've been lucky enough to have someone who turns even ordinary days into magic." And once again, tears, applause, and endless smiles. By the end of the night, as the stars shone above them, Dylan and Bai Lu shared their first dance. Not to a rehearsed routine, not to a chart-topping hit, but to a soft instrumental piece that only they knew the meaning of. And as they moved together, holding each other close, it felt less like a performance and more like a promise. Industry insiders were shocked, not by the wedding itself, but by the way it was carried out. No sponsorship deals, no brand endorsements, no media spectacle. It was the opposite of what people expected. And yet, that's what made it perfect. Because in an industry where so much is crafted, so much is staged, this one thing was entirely, beautifully theirs. The world now sees Dylan Wang and Bai Lu as husband and wife. But more than that, people see them as proof that true love can exist, even under the brightest lights. And as fans continue to celebrate, one thought remains. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a declaration. A reminder that love, when it's real, doesn't need to shout. It simply says, "I do." And that is enough to stun the entire world.